Hello everyone, welcome to Ruben's Book Club. I'm Ruben, your host, and today I will be doing a book review about The Love Letter by Jack Finney. This is the first time I have read in a long time, and I am going to review about what I have read so far and how it goes. This is a very old manuscript by Jack Finney. I believe it was published in 1959, and so far it was a very hard, actually it was a simple read, not that long, maybe like a couple of pages long, but I could not find a physical copy of his manuscript, so I had to print one online. And to my I just finished the story just today, and it's based off from the 1998 film The Love Letter. And to my surprise, it's almost like in the movie but different. But I am going to review about what I have read and give my perspective about it. The main character in the story, his name is Jake Belknap, a 24-year-old New Yorker from Brooklyn. He basically he bought this old antique desk from the 1800s from a secondhand store, which I think antique store. And according to what I have read about this desk, and so I am going to read you my review about this manuscript that I have read. What I have thought about, how I felt about it, so let's get on with it in this story. It is about a 24-year-old Jake Belknap who lived in Brooklyn, New York, and to the very beginning of the story, he goes into an old secondhand store near his apartment, and he buys an old desk from the 1800s. Story. And from here, guys, he buys an old desk from a secondhand store, and of course, according to what I read, he restores it to his liking, he fashions it, etc. And during the entire time of the story, he comes back to whatever he was doing in his daily life, and he was going through this old desk with all the secret compartments and all this stuff and all that. And when he reaches into the desk, he finds some old papers and envelopes from the 1800s, and while he was reading it, it was back in May 14, 1882, and reading it, it was a love letter from a young girl. And while he's reading this letter, it was mostly like a cry for help, and it was a heartfelt letter by a young lady named Helen Elizabeth Worley. And this letter was dated back in 1882. But when Jake finishes this interesting letter that he had read from this young girl from back in the day, he started having feelings towards her. He started feeling sympathy for her. So during that time after he finished reading the letter, he had a very urge of writing her back, strangely. So he writes her a letter about how sorry he was and then how he felt about her. So, but the weird thing was about that, how he was going to send this letter from someone that was back in the 1800s. So he, he has this envelope, which is a letter for Elizabeth, and he goes outside of his apartment to this old Victorian mansion, which once belonged to Elizabeth when she lived there. And of course, to my surprise, he was kind of like, how am I going to mail this letter? Or how am I going to do this and that? But and right here, like what I wrote in my notes, that, and supposedly, according to the story, there was a mailbox at the next corner, and he stops by it and drops the letter within at the time, and he felt like it was a meaningless and that when he started walking back to his apartment, so he goes home and started feeling, fulfillment, but he does say to himself that he feels foolish, but in the same time he secretly pleased himself. But in the same time he felt sympathy for Elizabeth because how she was crying for help and how hopelessly that she felt in her letter. So by Jake's response to her, you to find history of, so by his reaction to her letter, he decides, he already mailed the letter to her in the old mailbox where she once lived in that house back in the day. So later on in that story, on that part, he tries to discover about the old house that she once lived in. He wanted to know the history and everything about that. So, and during the story, I think he was in the library, and he started, somebody was reading an old book about New York back in the day, and he stumbled upon it, and he started reading the history about New York back in the 1800s, and old photographs from, let me see, yes, here it is. He looked in it, and there was an old photograph of New York City back in the time, and he stumbled old photographs of the house with a lady in the background, thinking that he might think that was Elizabeth somehow. So from there on, he kind of wondered if it was her or not. But during the entire time, Elizabeth so during that time, after he was discovering if that was her in the photograph in that history book where that man was reading it from the library or somewhere around there, I think, but he found himself thinking about her constantly and how he was in his mind all the time, Elizabeth. And he went back to the desk. He started going through the secret compartments, digging through the desk and all that. And during Jake's surprise, he opened the other secret drawer. He found a very paper of Elizabeth Worley in it and gloves. And Brooklyn of 1882. The other side of that road, an old slot, but from the second secret little drawer, he found a paper and he opened it and he read it, and it was a letter from Elizabeth. She was pleased with him in the letter, that hoping that it was not a cruel joke, and hoping that it was really him there on. And Jake decided to write to her the letter, telling her that, explaining to her that this was no hoax, that it was not a joke, that he was explaining to her that he was from New York, Brooklyn, that everything was different from what her time was. And, explaining to her how everything was going. And then finally he broke the bomb on her, the news that he was falling in love with her. And so in the letter, after the letter, he explains to Elizabeth that that for her to add the letter, to send him a letter to add it to the secret drawer, that he can receive it, and some other things for her to do, and so, but later on during the story on Elizabeth sends her, so Elizabeth later on sends him an old photograph of her back in the day, a picture of her, and to Jake's amazement to see how beautiful she was in the classic photograph from the 1800s. So from there on, guys, he's been writing to her for years after this photograph. They've been back and forth with his letters, and then finally later on he let me see, letter. So later on, he supposedly that he wanted to find her tombstone, her grave. And it supposedly, okay, here it is. Supposedly it took a week and 4 days of searching the headstone of Elizabeth. And he finally found it, and he read the inscription of the tombstone of Helen Elizabeth Worley, 1861 and 1934. Under this were the words, "I never forgot." When I read that, I was like, okay, wow. But, I was a little bit disappointed about Jack Finney's novel, or short novel, because I was hoping that it would be a little bit more detailed to the story, but, surprisingly, it's really that good. I like it, it is as it is. but it is based off from the 1998 movie, The Love Letter, with excuse me guys, I forgot my notes. The 1998 film, with the actor of the 1998 film The Love Letter, which is one of my favorite movies, and it gives a little bit more detail. So the actors is with okay, the actors are Camp Scott, Jennifer Jason Lynch. Campbell Scott plays Jake, but in the movie they changed it to Scotty Cardigan. And Jennifer Jason Lynch, who plays Elizabeth. But in the story, it was Helen, I think, I forgot the name of it, but her name was, let me see if I could find it, guys, real quick. I'm very sorry about this. Here it is. Helen, wait a minute, let me see. Sorry about this, guys, I wasn't prepared for this, but, alright, here it is. Here it is. But anyways, guys, her name, well, in the story, it was Helen Elizabeth Worley. But in the movie, they changed it to Elizabeth Whitcomb, which I have no problem with that. But in the movie, I do encourage y'all to see the movie. I am going to review it, but not right now, until I get to the bottom of this story by Jack Finney. But I do encourage y'all to see the film, The Love Letter, the 1998 film. It's a really good movie, guys. I really like it. And it is based off of the story by Jack Finney. A little bit different, but I have no problem with it. But I'm going to give my opinion about this story, the Love Letter by Jack Finney. I do like it, guys. It's pretty good. Too bad there's no physical copy of this novel by Jack Finney. Even though I found the accurate manuscript from online. So, but it's only a couple of pages, maybe 5 or 4 pages. It's really short, you know. It doesn't really. It gives more of the detail by Jake, who is the main character of the story. It's more detail about him. There's hardly any background of Elizabeth, to my understanding, which is kind of disappointing. You know, it doesn't really give a background, lifehood of her. And it's pretty good. It does have potential. I do give it maybe a 4-star. But how I feel about this, I love a good love story, guys. And, you know, I do give it a 4-star. So I give it a thumbs up. So that is all for today, guys. Please subscribe to my channel. And I will be giving, I'll be doing some more videos of the books that I have read and the movies I have done. So please give a thumbs up, give a review, and subscribe to my channel. I do have an Instagram and YouTube channel, so please give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And thank you guys for watching my video, and I hope you have a good day, and God bless you.